Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American science fiction horror film from 2010, titled Dinocroc vs. Supergator. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. At Drake Industries Research Lab in Hawaii, Dr. Kimberly Taft and her brother Dr. Stewart were developing a new biocatalyst to boost plant growth. Things were going smoothly until they had a video conference with Drake, the head of the Biotech corporation. Drake suggests they explore the potential of the growth matrix on living animals, specifically crocodiles and alligators, and offered to triple their funding if they agreed. Dr. Kimberly was against this idea, but Dr. Stewart, tempted by the promise of more money, convinced her to go along with the experiment. However, the experiment went horribly wrong, and two creatures, known as dinocroc and supergator, broke free from the lab, sending the scientists running for their lives. Chaos erupted as the supergator devoured two scientists before escaping into the water, while the dinocroc burst through a wall, crushing Dr. Stewart to death, leaving Kimberly devastated. The dinocroc also ate two more scientists before disappearing into the trees. Kimberly called Drake to report the failed experiment and the creatures on the loose. She suggests they inform the authorities, but Drake was against it and instead called in an elite mercenary group to kill the creatures. Soon, the elite mercenary group arrived at the forest and encountered one of the fleeing scientists. But instead of helping him, the leader of the mercenaries callously shot him to prevent him from revealing Drake's secret. The group split up, and one by one, they were hunted down and killed by the dinocroc. Two of the mercenaries tried to take down the dinocroc using every weapon at their disposal, including gunfire and explosives like C4. However, nothing seemed to work, and they were forced to retreat to a nearby river, and unfortunately, they were eventually ambushed and devoured by the supergator off-screen. Meanwhile, a couple, Katie and Bruce, are enjoying a lovely moment on the beach. As the weather was scorching hot, Katie suggests they visit the nearby waterfall to cool off, but Bruce was hesitant. However, Katie decided to go ahead, with Bruce following behind. Upon arriving, they found the waterfall to be breathtaking. While Bruce was standing in the water, Katie went to get a drink for both of them, and when she turned back, she couldn't find Bruce anywhere, leaving her worried and frantic. Unbeknownst to Katie, Bruce had been attacked and devoured by the supergator. Shortly after, Katie was also attacked and eaten alive by the dinocroc. At a private party, Victoria Chase, one of Drake's agents, informed him that the elite mercenary group he had sent to kill the creatures had all been killed. Drake suggested calling in fish and game hunter Bob Logan, also known as the Cajun, to take down the two creatures. In another scene, Paul Beaumont, an undercover government investigator and a scientist, was spying on Drake's lab through his laptop. He met a wildlife officer, Cassidy Swanson, who was stranded with a broken boat engine during a river tour. Paul offered her a ride in his Jeep, and on their way, they encountered a roadblock filled with rocks, followed by a loud sound, which Paul thought might be thunder, and they decided to head back. Two friends decides to visit the waterfall, where they meet a photographer, Reese Hammond, who was there to capture the beauty of nature. The girls persuaded Reese to take a photo of them, and he agreed. However, during the photo shoot, Reese was suddenly attacked and devoured by the supergator, leaving the girls in a state of panic and fear. They tried to run away but were soon caught and eaten by the supergator, one after the other. In another scenario, a cop and Cassidy's father, Charlie Swanson, was investigating a mysterious death of an animal. He noticed a large bite mark on the animal's body, which left Roy, the cattle rearer, and his friend wondering what could have caused it. Paul took Cassidy to a research site where his company was testing a new biocatalyst that accelerates plant growth. Cassidy was thrilled to see a massive mushroom, but their visit was cut short when they meet Dr. Kimberly Taft, who warned them to leave immediately. As they sped away in the Jeep, they noticed the dinocroc chasing them, and Paul accelerated to escape. Meanwhile, Bob teamed up with Victoria to hunt down the creatures. They traveled down the river by boat, searching for any sign of the beasts. After a while, they came across the dinocroc chasing Paul's group, and Bob managed to slow it down with an explosive arrow before it could harm them. Kimberly was taken to the hospital to receive treatment for her injuries, and was questioned by Officer Charlie, who later joined the group. Kimberly revealed that Drake was the mastermind behind the sinister plot, explaining why he had chosen to test the biocatalyst on alligators and crocodiles. These creatures have a high immunity to human diseases, and Drake's plan was to use their DNA to create a vaccine that would make humans immune, stronger, and more agile. However, the experiment went horribly wrong, resulting in the creation of the supergator and dinocroc, and Paul recorded Kimberly's confession on video. Later that night, while Kimberly was asleep, Victoria sneaked into her hospital room and killed her by injecting adrenaline chloride into her body. Paul caught Victoria in the act, and she attempted to inject Paul with the lethal substance, but he managed to stop her. However, she quickly used a defibrillator on him, rendering him unconscious before fleeing the scene. Shortly after, Cassidy and Bob found Paul and he informed them about Victoria's betrayal. He then contacted his boss, Marsden, an FBI agent, and exposed Drake's sinister plot, and Marsden promised to take care of Drake. As Victoria was nowhere to be found, Bob suggested a new plan, to bring the two creatures together, and let them fight each other to death, as they were mortal enemies. The group put their plan into action, with Paul and Bob departing via helicopter to search for the creatures, while Cassidy joined her father on land to track them down. Their goal was to bring the creatures together to fight and eliminate the winner, putting an end to the terror once and for all. Film producer Chaz Kingsley was hosting a pool party at his mansion, intending to recruit two ladies for his upcoming movie. However, the festivities were abruptly interrupted when the dinocroc attacked and devoured them. Meanwhile, Marsden had sent two officers to Drake's residence to wait for Victoria, and they found her with Drake. Victoria attempts to shoot the officers, but they returned fire, resulting in her death. Drake had a heart attack due to the shock, as he was already struggling with health issues, and despite his nurse's efforts, Drake succumbed to his condition and died. In a separate location, a group of tourists arrived at the Cocoa Palms Resort, eager to explore the factory. As the group exits the bus, the driver was suddenly attacked and killed by the supergator, which stomped on the bus. Aware that the creatures are drawn to human gatherings, Paul and Bob devised a plan to lure them into the mill factory. They set up explosives at the end of the tunnel, intending to detonate them once the creatures had entered, and they also carried an extra explosive with them. As the tourists continued to explore the Cocoa Palm Resort, an elderly couple was suddenly attacked by the supergator, causing panic among the others. Cassidy and her father arrived at the scene in attempts to shoot at the supergator, but their bullets had no effect. Recognizing the futility of their efforts, Charlie told Cassidy to get in the car while he faced the creature alone. In a remarkable display of bravery, Charlie managed to shoot the supergator in its eye, presumably blinding it. However, he was subsequently devoured, leaving Cassidy heartbroken. As she drove away, the supergator chased her all the way to the mill factory. Just as the creature reached the end of the tunnel, Bob and Paul detonated the C4 explosives, trapping the supergator and dinocroc inside and preventing their escape. Meanwhile, the dinocroc arrived at the mill factory, and the two reptiles finally confronted each other. Engaged in a fierce battle, they inadvertently ruptured the containers housing the mill's stores of sawdust. The fight continued, with the dinocroc emerging victorious after knocking the supergator onto its soft underbelly and attack it. Paul collected the extra explosive and ran forward to get within range, preparing to throw the explosive and ignite the sawdust. After the dinocroc killed the supergator, it spotted Paul and began walking towards him. Paul quickly hid in a trough filled with water, protecting himself from the impending explosion. The bomb detonated, igniting the sawdust, creating a massive fireball that knocked the dinocroc back and killed it. Paul was assumed to have perished in the blast as well, but he surprisingly survived the attack. Before Paul and Cassidy departed, the camera panned over to the lifeless bodies of the dinocroc and supergator. As Bob, Paul, and Cassidy walked away from the mill, the camera revealed a shocking twist. The mill is now home to baby creatures, possibly offspring of either the dinocroc or supergator, or maybe even both, as the movie concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about dinocroc vs supergator. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.